you have been training for life all wrong. Most people say life is a marathon and not a sprint. And I agree with them, but only to a certain extent. Now I see life holistically as a marathon. It's one big long race. But do we actually live like it's a marathon? I believe you view life as a marathon, but you live it in intervals. You live it at different paces, at different tempos. So you view life as a marathon. It's one long race, many years of your life. But you don't run it or live it like a marathon, or you don't run it like a sprinter would, but you live it in intervals. You live it at different paces because different times in your life are going to call for a different pace. Different times in your life is going to call for you to move quicker than other seasons. It's going to call for you sometimes to move with quickness and sometimes just to pace yourself. And just reminded me, like, right now, there's a big debate on social media, right, about hybrid training. Living your life as a hybrid athlete. On TikTok and social media, there's the debate between, well, not necessarily a debate, but it's different takes on hybrid training, bodybuilders, and just like weightlifting, right? At one point, culture was very, oh, I just want to get big and I want to get strong. I want to stay in the weight room. Running and doing these hybrid athlete events wasn't sexy. It was strictly, I'm going to the gym, I'm getting big, nothing else. I'm not doing my cardio, I'm not running, I'm just going to the gym and I'm getting big. The culture now has shifted from just trying to get big to now trying to stay lean and lose weight, and like I said, participate in these hybrid athlete events. So doing a lot more high rocks events. If you don't know that, it's like a multi-purpose event. Running more marathons. Running is very sexy right now. People on Strava, you see a lot of people posting their Strava. There's a lot of people participating in these marathons, these 5Ks, these 10Ks, these half marathons, doing Ironmans, doing 100-mile races. But the thing about these races, which made me think, is you have to have endurance, strength, and speed. You can't be a one-trick pony in these events. You can't just be an endurance runner without without the speed or the strength trying to do a high rocks or Ironman. You can't try to sprint through the whole thing where you're going to fail. But you must have the ability to turn that speed on when needed. Me personally, I want to do a high rocks one day. I like the feeling of being able to show that I have the strength and the endurance to make it through a 1 hour, 2 hour event where I have to lunge, do wall balls, do a skier, do all those extra things, but it's more from a hybrid perspective, because you have to train kind of like a hybrid athlete in order to do a high rocks at your best potential, because essentially you're just redlining your heart rate at a high speed and trying to maintain that for another hour, 2 hours. And it's made me think about how we view life. How do we live life? Who is living life as a hybrid athlete? Who is living life like a marathon runner? And who is living life as a sprinter? Now in this video, I'm going to go over how you've been living life wrong. You've been training life the wrong way. Or give you another perspective on how you can shift your life, the way you see life out, the way you live your life. But first you have to really know, like, what is the difference between a marathon runner and someone who's a sprinter? And the biggest difference of them all, I could say, is their focus is different. Because their focus is different, then their training is going to be different. When you focus on something, you automatically begin to move towards what you're focusing on. So whatever I set my eyes on, that's where I'm going to be moving towards. I'm going to take steps towards that. Think of it as a goal. I recently just learned, like, goals, you see goals as a tool. Goals is something that helps guide you to where you want to be at. So if I set my eyes focusing solely on that goal, I'm going to achieve that. I'm going to start taking steps. Things are going to, I'm going to be more aware of things around me to help me get towards that goal. If I want to just sprint through life, I'm going to do quick and fast things. If I want to endure through life, I'm going to do things that will help me be at a slower pace and to be able to maneuver and move through life at a good pace. For example, in the Bible it says your eyes are the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. Essentially, wherever your eyes are is where your focus is going to be. And that's where you're going to start drawing near to. I keep my focus solely on Christ. I'm going to draw near to him to be more like him. The same thing as if you were an endurance or a sprinter. If your focus and your eyes are set on being either one of those, as a byproduct, you're going to start to look like and train like a sprinter or someone who's trying to endure through life. And another main difference between the two is the different muscles they're using. Someone who is sprinting through life, or as a sprinter, or someone who is enduring, trying to run life like a marathon, they use different muscles. So sprinters rely on fast twitch muscles for explosive power and speed over short distances, versus endurance runners, they use more slow twitch muscles for more of a sustained effort over longer periods of time. So again, if you're a sprinter, I'm just trying to get to the end of this race. So think about it, if you're running a 100 or 200 or 400 meter race versus someone who's running a marathon, a half marathon, even I guess you can clarify running the 800. They use a little bit more slower twitch muscles to sustain them over longer periods of time. I'm going somewhere with this, you're going to understand later. So picture yourself, right? Picture yourself, you're a sprinter. In life, you picture yourself as a sprinter. Your focus is solely on and going to make it to the next day. Your focus is going to be to get your hands on the quickest thing you can. Your focus is all short-term goals if you're a sprinter through life, because you see it from the aspect of most track and field runners, they are 100, 200, 400 meter runners. Well, most people avoiding that 400, but those sprinters, their goals are very short-term because their runs take anywhere between 9 seconds to about a minute and a half between you running at 100 or 200 or 400. Their goals are a lot shorter than someone who is running a marathon, who is running a half marathon. So since my focus is different and my muscles that I'm using are going to be different, I'm going to look way different than someone who is trying to endure it through life, than someone who's trying to endure through life. So the training of someone who is a sprinter using those fast twitch muscles, like I said, their focus is very short. They have high intensity bursts of speed. The muscle fiber usage is fast twitch muscle fibers, and they appear to be a lot larger than someone who is running for endurance. But they have to be larger because they need it for quicker and they need it to be bigger for they can generate more force and be quicker in a smaller time frame versus someone who is training to be an endurance runner. Their muscle size, they typically appear more muscular than those who are in endurance running. So for example, I know you see a lot of people who are endurance runners, they're running marathons, half marathons, they appear sometimes to be slightly more skinnier, a little bit more leaner up, a little bit, not a lot of muscle on them, versus somebody who is sprinting through a race or through life. And this reminded me of, in life, when you look at most people who appear big on the outside, sometimes on the inside, man, they're struggling. Inside, they're fighting just to make it to the end because they wanted something so quick. They wanted something so fast, something so much of a hurry. And they appear muscular. They appear like they're winning. They appear like they have it all figured out. But inside, their spirit is fighting for some rest. It's fighting for you to slow down. Think about it. You cannot judge somebody based on the outside appearance of them. That's why Christ said he judges on the inside. He sees their hearts. He sees our hearts. He doesn't judge us on the outside. You have to look on the inside of somebody. So it's like, in life, you cannot judge somebody just because they appear muscular as maybe a sprinter would do, because in reality, they're struggling to make it through the end of life. They're going to be struggling and toiling to make it through the end of life because they wanted to appear bigger. They wanted to appear like they have it all figured out. They wanted to appear muscular. They wanted to appear like they have all the money. But inside, they have no joy. Inside, they are empty because they don't know how to endure through life. Now, back on topic, the training of a sprinter is much more explosive, more power, more speed movements. And you typically see these people in the weight room a lot more than endurance runners. Now, people that I just said, it's going to make sense later as well. You typically see sprinters in the weight room a lot more so they can appear much bigger than others. To appear much bigger than someone who is enduring through life. They spend a lot more time in the weight room. They spend a lot more time on social media. They spend a lot more time trying to be seen so they can appear more muscular than others. But inside, they're fighting just to endure, to make it through the end of this race we call life. Don't be fooled by that. Now, on the flip side, you have endurance training. What their focus is, it's a sustained effort over a longer period of time. The muscle fibers that they use are typically slow-twitch muscle fibers. They're much smaller, less forceful, and fatigue much slower than sprinters. They're much more leaner and with less muscle mass compared to most sprinters. Not to say that all sprinters or endurance runners are smaller or bigger, but more typically at a higher level, that's how you see them. The training is long distance running, tempo runs, and a lot more slower runs. But notice I said in a lot of endurance runners, they have to do speed work in their tempo runs. Now, it may have not be straight speed work, but they must know how to turn it on at some period of time while they're running. Think about it. If I am training to be a sprinter in life, everything I do is going to be quick, fast, quick bursts of energy. If I'm running the 100 or 200 or 400, I have to get out my blocks. If I don't get out my blocks, 9 times out of 10, I'm going to lose that race. Versus if I'm an endurance runner and I get out, I can get out at a slower pace, a more sustained pace. Now, compare that to the person who is trying to run through life as a sprinter. They get out those blocks quick, fast, and in a hurry to get to the end of the race. Versus somebody who is training for endurance, they get out at a slower pace, but to sustain it for a longer period of time. Now, you look at that, which one is likely going to make it through the end of life? The person who got out their blocks quick, fast to get done with that 100, 200, or 400 meter race, or the person that's going to get out at a pace where they can sustain over a longer period of time in regards to living life. Now, we know that what you focus on creates the outcome of what you want now. If you give energy to the outcome of becoming a sprinter as a byproduct, you're going to begin to look like a sprinter and become and feel like a sprinter. Moving so fast, but sometimes unable to endure. Only give energy to the outcomes that you want. Only to the outcomes that you expect to happen. If you give energy to being a sprinter and you're going to sprint through everything quick, fast, in a hurry, know that all your outcomes are going to come quick, fast, in a hurry. But if you give it energy and you're giving your time to enduring through life, to be at a pace where you can sustain long enough over a long period of time, that is the outcome that you're going to get. The energy that you put forth, where your eyes are focused, is where you are going to be. So keep your eyes focused on whatever outcome that you want. But what I did was, so we just went through the different trainings and the focus and what it looks like to be a sprinter or a marathon runner. Now, what I did based on these things, I asked ChatGPT, in modern times, what does this look like for the modern person? Someone who trains life as a sprinter and the person who trains life in life to be a marathon runner. What does this look like in modern times? what are the pros and the cons of this person? So the person who is training to be a sprinter in life, the pros, they're typically very sharp and driven. They're very goal oriented, hyper focused. They are driven with a purpose. Think about it. If I'm running a 100, 200, 400 meter race, my goal is simply quick to get there as fast as I can. They're very sharp and they're driven because they cannot afford to mess up. One split second they mess up out of their blocks or in that race can mess up the whole race. So you see that more in modern times when someone who is training to be a sprinter, they're very sharp, they're very focused, they're very driven, they're very goal oriented. If it has nothing to do with their goal, they're not going to do it. Another pro is that they can narrow down and focus on the activity without distraction. They can't afford to mess up in a quick race like that. If I only have 1 minute to run a 400, I can't afford really to mess up in that 1 minute. If I only have 9 to 12 seconds to run a 100-meter race, I can't afford to mess up. So they're very hyper focused. Running a 200-meter race, if I have 24 to 27 seconds to run that race, I can't afford to mess up during that time period that I have. So as a sprinter, if you're training in life to be a sprinter, no, you cannot afford to mess up in that race or in that season of life that you are in. They perform well in short and intense periods of stress. 100, 200, 400 meter runners. Short periods of time, quick races require for a little bit more higher points of stress. And their risk tolerance is much higher because they are willing to act quick and also fail fast. Because it's a short race, they can fail fast, but they must act quick. So they're able to bounce in and out of opportunities to get a quick win. But they're willing to do that because they want a quick win. If you want quick wins, sometimes you're going to fail very fast. But if you're willing to take that on and that's the outcome that you want, by all means, go ahead. But just know that the outcome is going to come quick, but it may also fail quick. Now, there are also cons to being a sprinter in life. These people are more subject to burnout. They believe their value is in performance instead of their purpose. Think about it. If I'm running a race and compared to someone who gets fourth place in a 100, 200, 400 meter race versus someone who gets fourth place in a marathon, the person who got fourth place in that sprint, they're going to believe the value of their performance was a lot less than the person who got fourth place in a marathon. So therefore, they're taking away the purpose of them just being able to complete the race, and they only see the value in their performance. And that is a very dangerous mindset to be in, to only see the value of yourself based on how you perform, than the purpose that God has for you, than the purpose that you are called to fulfill. So the person that's trying to endure and running through a marathon, they're going to see the fact of their purpose was to finish the race, to get a lower time as possible, but just make it through the end of the race. And it's dangerous to see yourself from a performance-based mindset than a purpose-filled mindset. Another con, they believe quick wins are the best wins. They only seek out short-term pleasure. And again, their life is built on performance and looks. They want attention. They want wins. The success fills their ego. It's tied to their success. Think about it. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but probably the 100-meter race, like in the Olympics, is probably the most watched race out of the 200 or the 400. You know why? Because when you get to it's a quick race, it's fast results, and you figure out who won very quickly. So therefore, it looks a lot better than someone who ran a 200 or 400 because the attention is solely on that 100-meter race. Think about it like in the NFL Combine. It's a quick race, and the person who gets first place usually gets a lot of the glory. They get a lot of the it looks a lot more sexy. It looks a lot more, oh, I did this and this, not the third. That race gets the most praise because it's quick and it's fast. So therefore, they appear big. They appear like they did the most, as it required a lot of training, but it just appears to be bigger than someone who just ran a longer race. They're impatient in long-term processes or long-term seasons. They're insecure in their waiting season, so their anxiety is kicking in, and they're insecure in themselves because they don't believe in the fact of, since this is taking so long, that I'm going to fulfill it, or I'm going to make it to the end. If you always live life on your toes, you always live life trying to make it to the end and just run through it as fast as you can, when you get put in a season where you have to wait, you become insecure in the ability for you to make it to the end. And therefore, that's when doubt starts to come in. And you start to doubt what God told you. You start to doubt yourself. You start to doubt your capabilities because you're so used to winning so fast and so quick. You don't have enough trust in yourself or in God that you're going to make it to the end of this race. So be careful with that. They're more likely to compare themselves to everyone around them. If I'm running on 100 and I got me in second place and the person in first beat me, I'm more likely to compare myself to them in that short race because it was very quick. They focus on what's in front of them. They focus so much on what's in front of them, it potentially blinds them to the potential opportunities that God has for them. So since I'm so hyper focused on achieving this one goal and I'm ignoring everything else around me, sometimes I may be missing the opportunities that God is trying to bring towards you because you're so hyper focused on this one thing. And it starts to hinder you. And they become over-reliant on what they see versus what God has inside of them, versus what is placed inside of them. So because I didn't get first place or second place, it goes back to the performance versus purpose point. It's because I did not see first place. Now I'm over-reliant on the fact of that I didn't get first place. Now I suck, or I'm a bad runner, or I should quit running, or I should give up on this, I should give up on that. Versus the fact that you remember that God placed something inside of you, that He believes in you, that just because you did not win this event or win this race, or this didn't fall through the way you wanted it to, does not mean you're a failure. Now, on the flip side, what does it look like to be an endurance runner in modern times? Their values are built on patience, consistency, and personal growth, and not instant wins. Think about it. If I'm running a marathon, I don't have to be so quick to win. It's more built on patience because I have to run for anywhere between 2 to 4 to 6 hours of a race. So I'm likely to be more patient in this season of life. I'm more likely to be patient as I'm going through life. I have to be consistent while I'm running this race because I want to run at a consistent pace that I can sustain over a long period of time. I may want to get out at an 8-minute pace and hold that 8-minute pace for the next 6 to 12 miles. So therefore, for the last back end of those miles, I can then increase the time and run maybe at a 7:45 pace. So if you're an endurance runner, it requires you to be more consistent in modern times because you're running at a pace that you can sustain over a long period of time, and you know you can cut it up or cut it down whenever you can. And personal growth. If I'm running a long race, when you're running these long races, it requires you to reflect a lot because you're running and your mind is telling you to quit. Your mind is telling you to walk. Your legs are hurting. Your legs are burning. You want to walk. You don't want to run no more. You don't want to jog no more. Your heart is beating fast. Your heart needs you need some air. You need some oxygen. But you're telling yourself, no, I'm not going to give up. So you're more subjective to have more personal growth versus someone who is sprinting through life and they go through things quick, fast, in a hurry. Versus if I view life and I'm running life as a marathon, I have to keep that consistency so the personal growth can then arise out of me. Without my legs getting tired, I'm telling my legs, man, no, we got to keep going. My heart is, I need some air. We need to slow down. No, we need to keep going. We need to build this pace. You need to build up that win. So therefore, it now is building confidence that now you can finish through the race. If you made it through the first 13 miles of the race, you can finish the last 13 because pain is nothing but weakness leaving the body sometimes. And is that in that pain, you're telling yourself, man, no, we're not going to give up in this. And apply this to whatever you're going through right now. Tell yourself, man, no, we're going to move at this steady pace and we're not going to give up. We're going to be consistent. We're going to keep plugging in. We're going to keep planting these seeds. So therefore, when the time is right, they may reap. And you can have the fruits of your labor. Delayed gratification is another pro for someone who is a endurance runner in modern times. They understand the longer they can delay success, the bigger the reward. And you can see that that's something that has been studied among some of the most successful people, the ability to delay the gratification, to delay the win, to do something for a long period of time, do something that's boring for a long period of time, and they delayed the reward because they knew in this season of development where they were delaying that reward, that eventually it was going to come. So you see what some of the most successful people, the ability to delay the reward makes the reward a lot bigger sometimes. The ability to put down trying to win quick, trying to win fast, to do something over a long period of time that's boring, that no one else wants to do, to delay that win, so therefore the win can be much more worth it when you achieve it. They focus on consistency, as I just said. They're not focused on trying to be seen. They're calm under pressure because they have to handle discomfort for long periods of time. If you're running a marathon, you're running a long race, you have to handle that discomfort for a long period of time. Whereas someone who is trying to sprint through life, when discomfort comes, they won't know how to handle it because they haven't been in the position to where they have to sustain that discomfort over a long period of time until they reach their breakthrough. So that's why you see people say life is a marathon and not a sprint, because you have to be able to sustain that discomfort for a long, sustained period of time versus someone who was trying to sprint through life, and when that discomfort hits them, they fall down, they get injured, they don't know what to do now because they've never been in the position to where discomfort has hit them for a long period of time. These people are more strategic and less reactive. They thrive in steady states instead of chaos. Now, there are also cons to being an endurance runner in modern times. They typically suffer in silence. They suffer in silence and they romanticize suffering with their self-worth. Romanticizing suffering with your self-worth is dangerous because if you're an endurance runner, you're trying to sustain it through the long periods of time, make it to the end of life. Sometimes people will see their suffering as glory, and then they'll try to put their suffering on the pedestal and say, oh, because I'm suffering this much, that makes me better than you because I suffered more. Because I suffered more and I was able to hold on to discomfort for a long period of time, and I went through more than you, I went through worse than you, that makes me better than you. And they begin to romanticize with that and see themselves better than somebody else, and they see themselves as it starts to get arrogant. And that's not something that you want to do, is romanticize suffering with your value. Romanticize over suffering as your self-worth, because that's not you. Now, suffering may help you come out stronger on the other side, but you don't romanticize with it to the point you see yourself better than somebody else because you suffered more or you went through more. They are not flexible. They're typically very structured. They want to do things one way, only this way. They burn out slowly without recognizing the signs. If you're running as an endurance runner, you're running through life as an endurance runner, you're going to burn out a lot slower but not recognize the signs because they're very small signs. And it's something sometimes even I would struggle with, is I'm moving at a sustainable pace, but since the signs are very small, I don't necessarily recognize that I am beginning to burn out until it's too late. They may be labeled as boring and underperform in those high-stake moments where a quick burst of intensity is needed. So because you're so used to setting at this slow pace, this pace to endure for a long time, when it's time for you to cut it on quickly for like a season or a time, you're going to struggle with that, and it's going to allow you to fall behind. Sometimes in life, you need to have that quick burst of energy, a quick burst of intensity. And if you're always so used to enduring and moving at a pace that you can hold for a long period of time, when it's time for you to cut it on and just grab use of this opportunity and not miss your mark, sometimes you're going to miss it because you've never been put in the position to cut on intensity for just a small period of time. And that is a danger when you're just pacing yourself through life and you don't allow yourself to go through a season of trying to increase that pace of what you're moving. But what if you trained for both? What if essentially you became a hybrid athlete in life? What if your focus wasn't just to endure to the end or make it to the end of life by sprinting or at a sustainable pace? What if your focus was to become the best person you could in the marathon of life that you are running? What if while you are going through this marathon of life, of you viewing life as a marathon, a long race, what if you viewed it as a marathon, but you becoming the best person you can be through that marathon? Now, in that marathon, which means in that marathon, it means you have to have periods of time where you are moving fast and moving at a sustainable pace. That's why I say view life as a marathon, but live it in intervals. Live it in times where you have to move fast and slower than some other seasons. What if you had the ability to sprint when needed and still gather yourself together for the remainder of the race, for the remainder of life? You had the ability to get out fast, but move at a sustainable pace. And then sometimes you have to turn it back on, then move at a sustainable pace. What if you had that ability? I believe in life, yes, there are periods where you have to be able to shift gears, but only for a moment, only for a season, only for a short distance. But you must know when to cut it off, because you can't sprint through life the whole time. And sometimes it's not beneficial to move at a steady pace through life the whole time. But if you are able to endure in those moments where you can have to cut it on for a quick second or a quick season to move fast, then cut it off and move right back at that slow pace, then I see that's better for someone to live. It's essentially being a hybrid athlete. You moving through like you training for a high rocks, or you're doing an Ironman, something along those lines, to become a hybrid athlete of life. In the same sense, like I said, you're someone who trains as a hybrid athlete. Become a hybrid athlete in life. You live your life as a hybrid athlete. You stay adaptive. You become aware when it's time to hit a PR, a personal record, and when it's time just to keep that pace. For everything, there's a season and time for every matter under heaven. Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. There's a time under heaven where I need to cut it on. There's a time under heaven where I need to move at a fast pace. There's a time under heaven where I must get out and move quicker than under other seasons. But there also is a time under heaven where I must keep a sustainable pace. There's also a time under heaven where I must move slower than other seasons. There's a time under heaven where I must rest. There's a time under heaven where I just need to just consistently keep going. There's a time under heaven where I must burst out with energy with high intense periods of time. But there's also a time where I just need to be able to move at a steady pace and just show up. For we may not know when the season may arrive, but at least we can prepare for it. For we may not know when the season may arrive, but at least we can prepare for it. Why am I messing up that part? We can at least prepare for it. For we may not know when the season may arrive, but at least we can prepare for it. Time and chance happens to everyone. Time and chance happens to everyone. But don't be the person unprepared when that time comes. When that time comes for you to move at a quick pace, don't be unprepared for when that time comes. When it's time for you to move at a sustainable pace, don't be unprepared for when that time comes. For your time will come whether you're prepared or not. So do your best to become the best you can by not just training to finish the race as a sprinter or an endurance runner, but training as a hybrid athlete to be adaptive, to conquer the race. So I hope this helps you, and I hope this blesses you. To view life as a marathon, yes, view it holistically as a marathon, as a long race that you must endure through. But train in intervals, live it in intervals. Sometimes it calls for a quick pace, sometimes it calls for a slow pace. May this bless you. Thank you.